Hello and welcome to Healthwaves podcast. I'm Eilish, nutritional therapist and host. 1 in 5 women are diagnosed with PCOS, which is Polycystic Ovary Syndrome. And that number may be higher if you think of the amount of people who are suffering with it and haven't yet been diagnosed. Today I'm chatting with another nutritional therapist, Nell Ní Chíobhán, from Kirkagwina in County Kerry. She is very well up on PCOS as she's come from her own health journey with the condition. I myself have good knowledge around the condition as my own daughter. I've helped her manage her PCOS. So today we're going to have a good chat together all about this condition.
Thanks for inviting me on today. My journey with PCOS and nutrition started in my teenage years. I didn't get my first period until I was 14 going on 15. From the very onset, I was later than all of my friends and I was jealous. I was kind of like, what's going on here? And then when they did start, they were very regular, very much so. And even, I'd say probably in the beginning, maybe every 2 or 3 months. When I was in college, I was not living a very nutritious lifestyle at all. I was drinking, I was eating crap food, probably for the first time in my life, because everything would have been cooked at home and all of a sudden I was living off
Away from home.
So then my periods start going to every 3 or 4 months. So I only got them about 3 or 4 times a year.
Definite indicator that there was a hormone imbalance from day one. You didn't really recognise anything at the time. Were you concerned?
So I was told to go on the pill when I was around 17 because when the periods did come then they were incredibly painful, very heavy. And because my leaving cert was coming up, I was told go on the pill. Then I kind of went, oh, this is fine. Everything seemed to be better for the first 2 or 3 months. Then I realised it was really affecting my mood. I kept switching to different ones, trying to find the right balance, and it never worked for me. I have a memory of waking up whilst I was on Dinette, which is quite a strong one, crying. Just waking up, bawling my eyes out. I was like, okay, there's something really right. This is not me. Because I'm naturally quite a bubbly person, and I was like, something's really off here. I just kept going to the doctors saying, is there something wrong here? Even by the end of college, they changed and they went 3 weeks on, 1 week off. Basically, I got diagnosed with an autoimmune disease of my blood, my platelets.
There can be an association
Absolutely.
with autoimmune conditions and...
Yeah. But I do think that it behaves a bit like autoimmunity in that you can have flare-ups. It doesn't seem to be, from my own experience and from seeing my clients as well in their journeys, sometimes very progressive. In comparison, something like endometriosis, pills and bills. PCOS, if you're living a certain way, it gets worse. And then if you start eating different kind of foods, it can get better. So there's definitely a kind of it's reactive, I think. That's what I see. I don't know if there's any papers to confirm my own experience of it, that it tends to be that bit more reactive.
And did you have any other symptoms showing at that stage, such as weight gain, like facial hair or anything like that?
I definitely was always a bit hairy.
Right.
I always had a touch. Even as 12 or 13, I was like, why do I have a mustache?
I know.
I started getting a bit of hair. So that was being a bit different. Definitely the hairiness, even on my arms, legs. As a teenager, you're so self-conscious. I thought I was so different.
And that was exactly with my own daughter, Anisha, as well. I remember when she was very young, saying to her that this was all normal and it's hormonal. At the time, I hadn't studied nutrition, so I was doing my best as a mother. And then it just all came together later. That makes so much sense that all these were little signs early on and they were triggered later.
Yeah, and I think we are not educated on this. It drives me mad. I don't know how many doctors I went to. I was such a basic case of PCOS. The late periods, the irregular periods, the hairiness. I didn't really struggle with the weight gain, but I was quite active.
Yeah, and I think it's where it's so individual with everyone, because if you look up PCOS online, you'll see obesity as one of the first symptoms, and it's often not the case.
Absolutely.
And it could be dismissed then as, oh, well, you're not a PCOS sufferer or whatever, but so many people can have PCOS without the weight.
I had a client this morning, so even when I was diagnosed officially, eventually, like the first time I went to gynecologist, maybe 22, 23. Mm-hmm. And I got to this point where I was getting the Marina Coy put in because none of the pills agreed with me. They then put it into my cervix instead of my uterus. So I bled for 3 months straight, kept going in, something wrong. And just,
goodness.
Yeah. So I was at my wit's end. Like I felt I wasn't being listened to. And you think like 1 in 5 women have this, possibly way more. And it's seen as this thing like, oh, you're overweight, just put down the fork. So much more than that, especially when you've cravings and you're suffering from mood swings, from the hunger and all this other stuff that's going on. So it's not helpful. But when I got my official diagnosis and I'd started my course, I knew what was going on. And I understood that 40% women with PCOS will develop diabetes.
Yes.
So straight away I was like, I really need to mind myself, even though I don't have a weight problem. But, you know, it's not about weight. The doctor who was overweight, the GP, just looked me up and down and goes, I don't think you have to worry about that. And I was like, you haven't even checked my 1AC.
Yes.
You don't know how my body is dealing with insulin right now.
No.
But you'll be fine. There's plenty of people with diabetes who are not overweight.
Yeah, and this will bring us down to one of the main triggers and the root causes of PCOS, insulin resistance. This is how our bodies are reacting to blood sugars and how they are producing insulin. In somebody with PCOS, they react very differently to the refined carbohydrates and have a lot of cravings, blood spikes, too much insulin being created, the pancreas getting involved, producing more and more. That's such a big aspect of it, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's huge. And I suppose as well with insulin, food obviously is a huge component of it and the quality of the food, but also coffee. That will spike your insulin. It'll spike your cortisol.
Yes.
Being stressed in general, that's going to interrupt your blood sugar regulation as well. So food can help a huge amount and it does help, but there's so much more to it. I think especially when it's a syndrome, there's so many different aspects of it.
So that's where a nutritional therapist is key to support people, because we don't recommend the same protocol to every single person with PCOS. We look in depth at their signs and symptoms, and then we can do more testing if needed. Testing hormones or gut testing.
There's different ways of looking at it.
What did you do for yourself? Is that the best way to go through what you did and how you helped manage your symptoms?
Once I got my proper diagnosis, I knew something was off. Even as a teenager, I was like, I only have 3 or 4 opportunities to get pregnant in a year. Most women have 12 chances. Yeah. I'm way down on the scale here. And it was something I always thought of, like, even as a young teenager, fertility was the back of my mind, do you know, which isn't really fair, but it was like, there's something off here. I think really, I suppose it was more the autoimmunity diagnosis that I was like, something has to change here because I'm getting diagnosed with different things. I just knew this wasn't the right way to be living. With the autoimmunity, I was on steroids for 2 years. I had my spleen removed and I saw a naturopathic nutritional therapist in Dublin.
Was that your first time to encounter somebody like that?
Yes, that was May 20. And I just walked out and I was like, my life will never be the same. And I suppose the biggest thing that he taught me was, I was always very conscious of the importance of organic food. That was always something in our home. And he just obviously stressed the importance of eating organic and having food that's truly nutritious as opposed to just trying to fill a hole, kind of, like that kind of mentality where it's like, we just eat it for the sake of it.
So more than just the macronutrients as well, really.
Yeah, looking at the micros, I suppose. And then I went down another kind of a nutrition hole where I went onto Netflix and I started watching every documentary and I became totally vegan, which, that works for some people. And I think it did work for me for maybe 2 years. It was like a good detox for me. But I did it for 4 years, and definitely the second 2 years of that, I don't think it was serving me anymore.
It increased your micronutrients, maybe your colour in your diet. You probably made more of an effort to eat more plant-based. Obviously, you were eating more plant-based, and maybe it was good in offering you foods high in polyphenols and antioxidants and that. But at the same time, you may not have been getting all your amino acids and B vitamins, which are crucial. Maybe omega-3 as well.
But there definitely was. I was only starting my course and back in it, I was like, I know these people because I'm vegan.
Yeah.
There was a bit of that. But then as I started going through the course, I was like, it's actually really hard to get your omega-3s
So difficult.
I was on antibiotics for 2 years straight after my operation. I went to see one of our lecturers, a nutrition therapist, and she was like, PCOS and you have an autoimmune disease. You've no business being, and she was very straight. And I needed that. Like I did need that at the time. She was like, be vegan. You need to build up your proteins and your immunity. I'm not telling you to have meat every day. After that, I was able to see, I don't buy a lot of meat, but if we're eating out, it's my treat.
Yeah.
Quite a bit of fish.
Yeah, and how much red meat then would be in your diet? Once a month,
maybe twice a month.
Twice a month, yeah.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really healthy approach and it's probably really good quality.
Organic from the post office.
Fab, yeah. It makes it so much easier when you really good quality red meat. I know from working with clients who are vegan, it's quite difficult to bring in all the right nutrients. You're thinking up ways of how to do it. It is just so much more simple and easy. And then you're getting your omega-3s, your essential amino acids and all that. So yeah, very good. And so that was diet. What else did you put in place?
So I suppose the kind of managing stress part as well. I had a lot of work to do in building boundaries, which I see to my clients where usually with autoimmunity, there's a lack of boundaries. It's like your immune system is your boundary with the outside world. If you're letting in negativity or starting to self-attack, it's reflected in your immune system. I went for a lot of counselling as well, different types, and that helped me realise the way I was living just wasn't serving me at all. I was able to put in practical steps. One thing I say to most of my clients is just you have to practice saying no.
Say no. I knew you were going to say that.
I never said no to anyone. I'd say for the first 25 years of my life, yeah, okay, where are we going? Belfast, cool, I'll be there. I was so keen, and it was kind of an insecurity. I wanted to be everyone's friend. Yeah. I was a real people pleaser. It probably worked for a while, but long term, I wasn't actually very happy.
Saying no, creating boundaries for yourself can help reduce your stress or anxiety or your cortisol production and all of that.
Definitely. Yeah. And then more physical things, like I just love swimming. I'm from near the sea, and I was living inland ever since I graduated 2011. I no longer had access to the sea, and I think it affected me.
I can imagine that. Yeah.
I just absolutely adore it. There's something about when you're floating and the sea is just holding you up.
Would you cold sea swim often?
I'm not as good this year as I was last year. I think just setting up a new business, still trying to find the right balance with it.
So I suppose going back to the boundaries and saying no, and just to let listeners know the impact and the cortisol and stress, how that impacts the hormones and the whole cycle of hormones, bringing in the hypothalamus, pituitary and ovaries, the HPO axis as opposed to the HPA axis, and how our ovaries and hypothalamus and pituitary all communicate together. They tell the ovaries what they should be doing, and when that's interfered with through us being in a high level of stress, our body produces cortisol to help us cope. That's fine if we need a stress response for a minute or half an hour. What's happening more nowadays is that we're living in this chronic stress where cortisol needs to be produced and produced and produced to the detriment of hormones like progesterone. Then you've got an imbalance of too much estrogen, too much testosterone, whatever. So that's just to remind everyone where cortisol impacts our ovaries.
I think with all the hormones that if one is off, they're all a bit off.
Yeah.
So I like to think of them as if you have a committee, everyone has a job. One job is to look at sunshine and make vitamin D, and the other one is to help you sleep. Every hormone has its job at a certain time of the day.
Yeah.
You want your cortisol high in the morning.
Of course.
And, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed.
Yeah.
To have the adaptability that it can turn on when you need it and not have it high all day long. Same with insulin. Like insulin is something that will spike.
Yes, of course.
If you are on a committee and there's loads of different opinions and one person takes over and is like, no, we're doing it my way. Cortisol can kind of do that where it's like, this is how we're doing it. We're under attack and we need to run. So come on now. The blood is running away from our digestive system, away from the reproductive, and it's going to our hands and legs because we need to run. And all the other hormones are like, but I need to do my job. But
they're forgotten about.
This is my show now.
Overtaken it all.
So I always think if one of them is really out of whack, they'll all be out of whack.
And I think particularly when it comes to female hormone imbalances, the four main biggies would be insulin, thyroid, cortisol, and they're the main players in female health, and one of them is out of whack. You're definitely throwing everything else. So after the cortisol and the stress, what would the next level of management be?
At the food, so always trying to look at your plate and just seeing how many colours are on my plate. Like how many polyphenols, how many beta carotenes am I getting in here? Is it a plate? Do I have a lovely salad with loads of different green, yellow, purple, red? Do I have my good quality protein? A frozen chicken Kiev, which I lived on for 4 years in college, and a good quality carb as well. Carbs are so demonized.
They are.
I'm always just like, it's quality. It's not quantity, it's quality. You know, if you have a lovely baked sweet potato, that's so much better than oven chips. It will win hands down every day.
Yeah.
So just to look and not be afraid of carbs. There's one theory about PCOS that says it may be genetic to deal with famine. I've listened to a few podcasts where they've talked about this, where they're saying that during famine or war,
Yes.
that it is not a good time to get pregnant. Pregnancy can be risky at any stage or age, but definitely if you're in a famine or in a war, it can be something that will kill you. You don't have the resources for it. The body doesn't distinguish between different kinds of stress, no matter what happens.
True.
Toothache, car crash, bereavement,
Yeah.
heartbreak. It's the same thing. The adrenals release cortisol.
Yeah.
So your body's just there saying, just, we're very stressed out. What's going on here? We're very stressed out. And there's no carbs. There's no carbs coming in. We must be in famine. Do you know what? We're actually going to reduce the estrogen being released now.
To protect you from getting pregnant, because this is not a good time to be reproducing. There's something scary going on.
She's stressed out because she's doing her leaving cert.
I know.
You know, and she's cutting carbs because she's reading magazines and everyone's really skinny. Like when I was a teenager, there was the Special K diet where they were encouraging people to have Special K for breakfast or dinner every day. I did that for a week in college. I almost died. There was that pressure on us. I don't think it's as bad now.
I feel like it's different influences. If you were following all the Fitspos on Instagram, it's probably as bad in a different way, targeting in a different way.
It's a pressure that's put on women that you don't see with men. It seems to be a societal thing where we're encouraged to be smaller.
Oh, she's healthier because she's smaller for some reason.
And men are healthier when they're bigger.
Yes.
How does that make any sense?
Yes.
The bigger muscles, it's like, oh, he's so healthy, he's so fit. But then when a woman does it,
Yeah.
I think the brain reads that and it's like, oh, you know, we're in famine.
What about exercise and that kind of lifestyle?
Yes. I suppose a big thing for PCOS is this. Even in the 90s, there was all this emphasis on cardio, running, and burn off the fat. And there wasn't as much on weight training because that was seen as a male thing to do.
Want to build muscle.
Good luck to you. It's not really going to happen unless you're taking a huge amount of protein. Women tend to have less muscle than men. Generally, we can work out more than them and we will still usually be smaller. So there's no huge risk of that happening. The importance of having muscles when you're a woman, especially with PCOS, your blood sugar is stored in your muscles. The bigger the muscles you have, the more ability you have to store that sugar away from your blood.
Yeah.
Because with the cortisol and the running away from the tiger, the body says, I need to release all this sugar into the blood because I need energy. But what ends up happening then is your blood gets gloopy. Like when you have something really, really sweet, like jellies or something, and you try to spit, and your saliva is literally turned into syrup. It's that same kind of vacation happening internally.
Okay.
The bigger the muscles we have, the more ability we have to be sensitive to insulin.
Yes.
It's really important.
And that's where strength training increases insulin sensitivity.
Absolutely.
So that's the mechanism behind that.
And I suppose with the high intensity interval training as well, that drives up cortisol. Because your body is like, oh, we're running away from a tiger.
Yeah.
I do think that there needs to be a balance there. It can't be all cardio. There needs to be weight training. And also for our bones. Like what you do in your 30s will benefit you in your 40s. So like I'm 35 now, so perimenopause is only around the corner. When you start preparing for it now, as opposed to it's starting to happen.
And my experience with Nisha, when she was working through her symptoms and we were trying to support her the best way we could, she was doing a huge amount of high intensity GAA, maybe training twice a week, match the weekend, along with her own runs. The cardio and high intensity had to come way back. It can be very hard when somebody is an athlete or a sports enthusiast and excelling at their sport to help them understand the cortisol just doesn't know whether it's a high intensity football game or something detrimental happening. It's the same cortisol that's being produced and it's having the same detrimental effect on your PCOS. That can be difficult for people to get their head around when exercise is predominantly a healthy thing to do. It's the balance, and it might be pulling back for a little while, giving your body time to relax, calm down, helping the nervous system to balance out, helping the parasympathetic nervous system to come in and just chill and find a balance in exercise. That is probably one of the reasons she turned to yoga so much. And it was a saviour, actually. And I've worked with other people and I've tried to get them to pull back on some exercise and bring in something like yoga, a slow yoga, not a mad
Power yoga.
A nice yin or restorative yoga can be excellent for somebody with PCOS because you're still exercising. Some movements can be strength resistance as well, holding yourself in a plank like that. You're also really working on the mind and helping balance everything out. So it's a brilliant one for anyone with PCOS or any hormonal imbalances.
There's a piece where with the high intensity training, you're getting loads of endorphins. So it actually becomes really addictive.
Yeah.
And it can be very hard for somebody. Like my client this morning, she said, don't ask me to do yoga or Pilates, I can't. I'm like, have you done a Pilates class? They're really hard. There's nothing relaxing about it.
But it is part of the whole puzzle, I suppose, that we, as nutritional therapists, when a client comes, really delve into what's going on in their lives, from their food to their sleep to their exercise routine. So many aspects come into it, and that's how we can deal with everybody separately and individually and put in all the different protocols for various lifestyles. We always try and work with clients to help them understand why we're doing something.
Yeah.
When they understand why they need to do something, they will be more inclined to do that.
Instead of take the pill and you'll be fine.
And in terms of supplemental support, did you take certain supplements and what did you find helped you?
Definitely. I'd say from the time I went to the first nutrition therapist, I started taking supplements. And then with my course and learning about them, it's not that it's just PCOS, but I do think women in general will benefit from an omega-3. It will help your hormones.
I think everybody in general benefits from a good omega-3, particularly if our diet isn't as rich in oily fish as it should be. Would you eat much oily fish?
I would, but not every week. I've noticed that.
People think they eat fish, but they don't realise that it has to be good oily fish. It has to be mackerel, sardines, anchovies, salmon, and then there's a bit of a question mark over our salmon because it's highly farmed and all that. So really mackerel and sardines, I think, are my go-to.
I do love sardines. And I have clients who just look at me like I have 3 heads.
Yeah.
No, you need to have them 3 times a week.
They need to take an omega-3 supplement.
And as well, if there's any bit of stress going on, omega-3 will help. I work in a health food shop and people come in and say, I need my cod liver oil, or I've been told to get an omega-3. I always recommend Wild Atlantic Health. I just think they're an excellent product on the market. I'll go through what's in omega-3. When you turn them around and check how much EPA does this have. Am I taking this? Is it for heart health? It's for hormones. How much EPA is here? And a lot of the times you look at the front and say, oh, 2,000 milligrams of omega-3. But then when you actually check it, some of them are like 200 or 300, really, really low. And then you're like, what's filling up the rest of the space?
To the regular customer out there, they're not going to know what levels they should be having. And if something says high in omega-3, then they think, oh, great, it's high in omega-3, it must be fine. Or a lot of people who are taking maybe a multi with an omega-3 is just part of that supplement, and it's just tiny, tiny amounts. Say, oh yeah, I have it, it's in my multi, which is just really nothing,
Especially if the multi is a powder.
Yeah.
I'd always just say,
where is the omega-3 in that?
Be in an oil form. So, straight away.
For sure.
People just did that.
So your omega-3 would be a go-to.
Omega-3 and vitamin D, definitely. Get it checked to see where your levels are at. And to ensure that you have nice, healthy levels. We just don't get enough sunshine in Ireland. And going abroad for 2 weeks, once or twice a year really isn't enough. You need to be sure when you're standing up that your shadow is shorter than yourself. Maybe that happens for 2 or 3 weeks of the year.
I know.
It should be this time of the year now, and it's been overcast. We haven't seen the sun.
I find it ridiculous how now we're being recommended ads on the radio not to take vitamin D from March or April until October. But there is no sunshine out there. So I don't know where we're going to get it from if we're not supplementing. And then also, on the other hand, being promoted to cover ourselves with sunscreen. If you're out in the sun and you're covered in sunscreen, you're also not going to get your vitamin D. I know that for my own daughter, vitamin D was a huge part of her supplement protocol. That one, again, that's where it's so individual. she tested her levels and they were basically on the floor. That played a big role. She had a massive supplement protocol temporarily until we worked on everything else. It can be daunting when you see these lists of supplements for PCOS, but like there might be like B complex and vitamin C and D and omega-3, something like anisotol, but it's so individual. One person may not need vitamin D because their levels could be high. Yeah. Again, with Nisha, we really had to look at things like constipation. She'd probably been constipated for years, but didn't realise she was.
That was her normal.
It was her normal. Yeah. So things like magnesium and vitamin C were brilliant for getting everything going, along with diet. The B complex, that was only temporary because, I'm sure she probably then with diet wouldn't have needed that. Yeah. But the two have stayed on, actually. Everything else she has been able to get through diet. Another thing I find really interesting for all hormonal imbalances and PCOS are things like adaptogens. Do you know reishi, the medicinal mushroom, is incredible for adapting within the system and helping to higher or lower various hormones, which I think is just fascinating. And another as well is maca. Maca can be very powerful for women as well.
Yes, definitely. With the adaptogens, they come in and scan the environment.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
If you look at it, it's a bit of powder or a tablet, and it's coming in. Like most supplements are like, this is for energy. Yeah. Whereas with the adaptogens, they come in and they're like, you could actually use some sleep. You're a bit exhausted. I'm going to make you sleepy. Or in the morning, do the opposite.
I just think the whole thing around reishi is amazing, how it will look at what's going on with you. Well, we'll higher this and lower this and give you a bit of this. With somebody else that's going to do the opposite according to what their needs are. So that is also super way to another road that people can go down.
Yeah. And especially when they help with adapting to stress.
Yes.
And we can't get rid of stress. Stress will always be there.
Well, we need it. It's so important.
Otherwise, if you've nothing to do all day, you mightn't get out of bed. We've all had days like that where you're like, that really low cortisol, no motivation. I think they're so important for helping us adapt to stress, because stress is such a driver. Yeah. For most women with PCOS, it really helps. Mm-hmm. There's one that personally I find I can't deal with. Ashwagandha.
It's really good for some people and not for others.
Not for me.
And isn't that funny where it's meant to do the opposite? And that's where I suppose people should take things, monitor how they are on them, because we are individual.
With ashwagandha, it can help increase your testosterone.
Okay.
So it's something that is amazing, usually for men. Yes. Or women post-menopause.
Absolutely.
Because their hormones are the grounds. That boost is amazing. Good. But I do think for women up until menopause, if you have PCOS, that it maybe isn't the right adaptogen.
Yes.
And it's the buzzword now. People come into Healthwaves shop and they're like, my mother's cousin's friend is on this and she says it's amazing. And I'm like, okay. The other thing with adaptogens is to stay away from blends, to see what suits you individually. Because you can take a blend and you don't know really what's doing what for you.
That's true.
Have them individually.
Yeah.
It's a bit like taking a multivitamin. Mm-hmm. So you might need half of them because you're actually consuming and absorbing them.
I know.
Trying to figure out what actually works for you is really important.
Yeah. And I think the last part, which we never really got into, is the link between PCOS and our gut health, as I mentioned earlier, about like constipation or different digestive issues. I read a statistic that up to 40% of women who suffer with PCOS also have IBS.
Yeah, with PCOS, inflammation will affect your gut. So trying to bring down that inflammation, not eating foods that are inflammatory, try to cut down on dairy and gluten. Not all dairy is made the same.
I know.
All dairy, but fermented foods are great.
And gluten, if there's an autoimmune component.
Yeah. Gluten and autoimmunity just don't go together. But I mean, a good sourdough, if you have that every Sunday, you're probably going to be fine. 2 slices on Sunday, absolutely. But if you're living off sandwiches and having toast in the morning, processed crappy white bread for your breakfast and then a sandwich for lunch and a pizza for dinner, that will hugely affect your gut. Whether you have PCOS or IBS.
Affect anyone's gut.
I think with PCOS.
Sensitive,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I suppose the term IBS is kind of thrown out for just digestive issues. Oh, you have IBS, whether it's somebody suffering with constipation or diarrhea. Women generally will suffer more from constipation.
Yeah.
And so our digestive system, because our reproductive system is on the inside, our intestines are shorter. We've less room to break down the food. estrogen dominance can become constipating. So you have a woman who has high estrogen, she starts to get constipated. Then there's maybe high levels of beta glucuronidase in the gut. So your liver has broken down the estrogen and put the products through the digestive system, and the beta glucuronidase comes in and recycles it, and you've more again. Which
and then
constitutes you more.
And then if your motility isn't moving as it should be and you're not excreting, you could be reabsorbing used hormones and all of that. We need to be removing all the toxins from our bodies. So before we finish up, we might briefly touch on the toxic environment, the toxins that we're ingesting, toxins that we're taking in from various sides, and the effect that can have on estrogen and maybe the estrogen mimicking effects, EDCs.
Yes, right. They're just everywhere. I think where we live in the world, probably anywhere really, we're constantly bombarded by these chemicals, these endocrine disrupting chemicals that are in fragrances, people's perfume, air fresheners, skin products and shampoos, candles,
sunscreens.
They're everywhere and they're there all the time. The only way to break them down is through your liver. So whether it's something that you inhale, whether it's something you put in your skin, it all goes through the liver. And the liver is like a single mom, 4 kids under 3.
Already overloaded.
She's 2 jobs and she's overloaded. You know, she has over 200 functions a day, and next thing you're throwing in all these chemicals, and she's looking at them saying, what is this? I've never seen this before. Like there's new forever chemicals coming out every single year. And I suppose they come into the body, a lot of them mimic estrogen. If you think of a cell, there's a receptor on it. And only if you have the right shape, it's like a lock and key, can you put in the key and turn this on. A lot of these phthalates and sticks as well.
Yes, the plastics,
they can look
all
like
of that.
estrogen. So they come in and your cell has like little key on it. And then this guy comes in, looks the exact same.
Fits in,
turns on. So, you know, we're always trying to help the liver as much as we can. Even if you don't seem to have any kind of issues with it, we just have to support her. Like, she is up to high dough all day long.
Incredible, really.
Yeah.
Now that we're coming to the end of this podcast, we've given people a good idea of how nutritional therapy can dig into the root cause of an individual with PCOS and how that root cause can be very different between one person and another. All the different tools that we have and the support that we give. We just have so much to offer with anyone out there with PCOS. Not to lose hope or be disheartened when you get this diagnosis, because it is a bit daunting, it's a bit scary, especially for teenage girls.
I think doctors kind of say, oh, you have this, and just go on the pill.
That's where our role is so important. So where can people find you now?
I'm on Instagram at Anam Nutrition.
So being the Irish for
soul.
Lovely.
Yeah. So my ethos is trying to do it from within. We can take control of our health and change things around. Diagnosis doesn't have to be forever.
We really support people, give them the power, support them for a certain moment in time, whether that's a few months, then they can go off with the empowerment that we have taught them.
Yes.
They can go off and keep going themselves.
Yeah.
So they can find you on Instagram.
Anam Nutrition.
Do you see people in person or over Zoom or?
Both. So in person, in English and Irish, I like to work.
Oh, that's really nice.
And then over Zoom as well.
Great. It was just so lovely to chat all things PCOS, and hopefully we have been able to help people out there who are listening, and they know where to find us and where to find other nutritional therapists in their area and all that we can do for them. So, míle buíochas.
You're me, Mahad.
Every Sunday after Mass, she would go and take a glass before going